Hello everyone, Douglas Macbeth here again for a week 2 review. Well, I hope you enjoyed week 2 and particularly the little exercise in stakeholder analysis which allowed a bit more interaction between some of you. So overall I hope the learning process was a good one. I thought I would try and review the presentation from WCC this week again as I did last time. One of the issues about these presentations are that they are intended for experts rather than beginners to a subject area. So some of you might have been struggling a little bit, and I'll do my best to explain some of the terms that maybe were a bit strange. They are really good value, these presentations, and if you can have a look at it and take what learning you can from it. It might be something you want to come back to later. But essentially this was negotiation room 2 that I was talking about, the red lines. Now that might have been a problem right away, because what is a red line? It's obviously a term that these experts use, but it's also used in other areas. Politicians, for example, talk about having red lines in their negotiations. In the English language we have a phrase about drawing a line in the sand, which is supposed to be so far and no further. So the red line is the same kind of logic. This is something which is essentially not negotiable. It's something that I must have or nothing can be agreed. And the difficulty in the contracting is that once you get into the details of legal speak and particular clauses that have to go in contracts, it's very easy for these red lines simply to be exchanged between the parties and nothing really changes. These are fixed points and nothing much happens. They're basically there as part of the risk-averse nature of some negotiation processes. And many of them have been around for a long time and maybe not questioned about why they're still needed if they are. So there's also kind of 2 stages to negotiations which were also drawn out in this presentation. That often there's a stage where the ideas, the basic ideas, the products, the services, whatever, are examined at the beginning. And this they describe as the contractual phase or the commercial phase. And then once there's some kind of agreement at that stage, perhaps between a purchaser and a salesperson, they think their job's over and pass it to the next team, who are often very expensive resources like lawyers, or detailed contract management type people. And so there's a disconnect in the process. Now this was talked about a lot. Much better if you can get everyone round the table at the beginning, explore what must be given and what is not going to be allowed. But crucially, ask the questions about why. Why is this important to you? Are there any other ways you could get this problem solved for you? Do you know how much this is worth to you? Often that's a difficult question to ask, or more correctly, a difficult question to answer, because many of these things are for rather low probability but high impact type things, and it's very difficult to put values on those. So there are some inherent problems, but there are continual talks about some practices in the legal profession which are so risk averse and so looking for problems that they actually become impediments to agreement. As someone quoted in the presentation, lawyers negotiate for divorce, not happy marriage. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to look for problems and then try and put some mitigations, some agreements in place to avoid or to recover from these problems. But the the constructive people arguing for collaboration and negotiation are really saying, let's concentrate less on the difficulties and more on the opportunities, and particularly those opportunities to create value for both sides. So, some interesting issues there. One interesting point that came out clearly is that sometimes the two teams, the commercial team and the legal team, are staffed by different levels and expensive resources. So the legal side tend to be very busy and need to be used carefully. And yet the people starting the process are often doing this blind and sometimes without actual authority to make decisions. So ideally, if you could get everybody around the table, but the resource argument is always going to be there. So maybe we need to find ways to better inform, better train, better motivate the early players in the negotiation so that they can avoid some of the problems that the lawyers are trying to fix later. There was a general statement made again that the people who think they've done a commercial deal often have only dealt with about 20% of the deal, and the rest of the detail needs to be worked out by the legal people. And that's where the red lines come. Each side says, this is what I cannot move on, and red lines a particular part of the contract. The other side then says, well, that red line is unacceptable or acceptable. If it's unacceptable, they send another red line back. And so you get this kind of table tennis, or in Western language, ping pong, backwards and forwards, not adding very much value, but increasing the amount of time and cost of making it all happen. One way that WCC are trying to get around this problem is to provide more standard contract clauses that the early people can be trained to use, and so avoid the problems that need the expertise of the legal people later on. So start from the beginning, start from sensible statements about what each side is looking for, what they're hoping to achieve, what they're willing to give and maybe not so much. And avoid the focus on stopping bad things happening. Clearly you need to be aware of those things, but a more positive tone from the beginning might pay dividends. Above all, contracts need to be understandable, readable and usable. So there are some interesting messages in there. And even if you're not or intending to be a contract manager or a commercial manager, these ideas about negotiation apply wherever negotiation applies, which is a lot more places than we realise. So one key message about the red lines is that not to leave them just sitting there, but follow up the red line with a conversation. Ask the other side why this is important. Are there any other ways to satisfy or to mitigate the problem? So above all else, understand what's at stake behind all of the issues. Ideally put a number on it, but that's really difficult. And there's some suggestion that artificial intelligence might make that easier to do in the future. But the general view in the discussion was that contracting has so many variables in it that it's unlikely that AI can get to a situation where they're replacing the experts in this field of work. The AI can speed things up, they can provide more information, they can search for information that's difficult to get naturally. So there might well be an increased complementarity about having artificial intelligence systems working alongside humans. But the general feeling from the discussion was the humans are hugely important. So I found it an interesting discussion. I hope this little presentation by me has helped to make it a bit more understandable if it's not your main field of activity. But next week also looks to be very important because they're going to do a summary of, excuse me, a summary of all of these similar events that WCC have been running, something like 39 of them. So I look forward to some more little nuggets of things that can help us all do better jobs. So hope your week 3 goes well for you, and you still continue to find an interest in our course. And thanks again for your contributions. Talk next week. Bye for now.